Chief Antonio Guterres says half of Gaza's 2.3 million population is now crammed into Rafah with nowhere to go, warning the displaced have no homes and no hope. We'll also tell you the latest in business, sports and entertainment across the globe. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Njoka. Let's start with the headlines. Meet rivals and former Pakistani Prime Ministers Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan claim victory in Pakistan's general elections as counting nears the end. Netanyahu orders Israeli military to develop plan to evacuate civilians from Rafah, where more than half of Gaza's population is sheltering. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says he wants to, quote, lend support to Biden's efforts to obtain more funding for Ukraine during a White House meeting. White House slams Department of Justice Special Counsel report that suggests Biden was suffering memory lapses. Vice President Kamala Harris calls report clearly politically motivated. Death toll in Indian state of Uttarakhand's Haldwani climbs to 6 following Thursday's violence over demolition of an illegally built madrasa. Over 200 others have been injured. Over 2,000 residents evacuated due to fuel leak in central Mexico. No victims or further incidents reported yet. And Patham Nissanka becomes the first Sri Lankan cricketer in history to score an ODI double century. The opener hits an unbeaten 210 off just 139 balls in a 42-run victory over Afghanistan in Kandy. Former Pakistani Prime Ministers and arch-rivals Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan have both declared victory, as still no clear winner has emerged in the Pakistan elections. The February 8th elections have been marred by violence, mobile disruptions and delayed results. Serious rigging allegations have also been leveled by major political parties, throwing the country into further political turmoil. As per the latest figures, Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's backed independent candidates have won 98 out of the 266 directly elected seats in the National Assembly. Nawaz Sharif's PMLN has become the single largest party with 67 seats. Meanwhile, former Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's Pakistan's People's Party, or the PPP, is in third spot with 51 seats so far. These numbers are expected to change further as results for 24 National Assembly seats are yet to be declared. Nawaz Sharif won his National Assembly seat from Lahore's National Assembly 130. Imran Khan, who is serving a 14-year prison sentence, was not allowed to contest. His party's poll symbol was also struck off by the Election Commission barely weeks ahead of the polls. His party leaders hence ran as independents. In the latest, PTI chief Gohar Ali Khan won from Buner's NA30 seat. Pakistan People's Party chief Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who is also the son of assassinated Premier Benazir Bhutto, has secured victory on 2 seats, the NA194 seat in Lakhana and the NA196 seat in Kamber Shadat Court. However, Bilawal has lost the Lahore National Assembly seat NA127 to PMLN's Atta Tarar. Despite trailing behind Imran Khan-backed independents, Nawaz Sharif organized a victory speech Friday evening Sharif said that his party would talk to other rival groups to form a coalition government. According to reports that came late on Friday night, Sharif met PPP co-chairman Asif Ali Zardari shortly after his victory speech.
Alhamdulillah, Muslim League Noon is the largest single party in the country today after the elections. और मैं समझता हूँ कि हमारा फर्ज है कि इस मुल्क को भंवर से निकाला जाए.
Interestingly, Imran Khan's PTI party also released an audio-visual message created using artificial intelligence. In the message, Imran Khan rejected Sharif's claim to victory and congratulated his supporters on winning the election, urging them to celebrate and protect their vote.
मेरे पाकिस्तानियों, आपने कल वोट देकर अपनी हकीकी आज़ादी की बुनियाद रख दी है. मैं आप सबको इलेक्शन 2024 जीतने पर मुबारकबाद देता हूं. मुझे आप सब पर पूरा भरोसा था कि आप वोट देने निकलेंगे. आपने मेरे भरोसे का मान रखा और आपके मैसिव टर्नआउट ने सबको हैरान कर दिया है. लंदन प्लान फेल हो चुका है आपके वोट की वजह से.
Independent members cannot form a government on their own under Pakistan's complex election system. Pakistan's National Assembly, which is the lower house of parliament, has 70 reserved seats. These seats, reserved for women and non-Muslims, are allocated or allotted to parties based on their winnings. Independents, however, have the option to join any party after the elections. Result declaration marred by chaos and confusion has also triggered some unrest outside polling stations and elsewhere. At least 2 people have been killed in the post-election violence in the country's northwest region. Meanwhile, the US, the UK and the European Union have separately expressed concerns about Pakistan's electoral process and urged a probe into reported irregularities. They mentioned allegations of interference, including arrests of activists. Always Tawheed is a senior journalist and is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Tawheed, good evening to you and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me in your show.
We've seen some interesting developments in Pakistan over the past 24 hours. We've seen PMLN and the PTI both declaring victory, and the final results have not been declared yet. How do you view this latest development?
Dramatic events unfolded in the last 24 hours. No one predicted the way results started pouring in, showing heavy mandate for jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. His supporters came out with resilience, immense defiance, and everyone knows in Pakistan that Mr. Imran Khan and his party faced desertions, defections, convictions, and probably faced the crackdown allegedly orchestrated by country's military establishment. And in spite of that, his supporters, mostly young, in northwest Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and central Punjab province, which is the heartland of Pakistan's military establishment, and the arch rival, Mr. Khan's arch rival and veteran politician Nawaz Sharif, who remained Prime Minister thrice in Pakistan. They actually showed great resilience, which was not only unexpected for political pundits, but probably for military establishment. They actually, right now, the election results which you have just narrated, now showing that the biggest block is Mr. Khan's backed independent candidates.
Let's talk
And
about
the
that.
second-
Tawheed, let's talk about that now, because the independents are now, or the independent candidates are now on the rise. And we understand that PMLN Supremo, that is Nawaz Sharif, is trying to convince these independent candidates to join his party. Will he be able to convince them enough to form a coalition if he wins?
That is going to be a challenge. That is going to be a challenge not only for Mr. Imran Khan and his party leaders, who are on surface. Mr. Khan is in prison. So obviously the party is facing difficult position. No doubt that supporters came out and they translated their support for Mr. Khan or resistance vote against the military establishment in terms of votes. Massive resistance vote was cast for Mr. Khan. Now it is going to be a challenge for Mr. Khan and his party leaders to unite those independent candidates. And at the same time, now we know that backstage political wheeling dealing, which is a tradition in Pakistani politics, that is going to happen, that is happening. But Mr. Khan's party leaders are very confident that they say that they have taken oath of allegiance to all the independent candidates who have won in the name of Mr. Imran Khan or his party, Tehreek-e-Insaf. So they are not going to betray.
Okay.
And they cite an example that defectors who actually deserted the party, they have been defeated in the election. At the same time, Mr. Nawaz Sharif is also facing a huge problem because it was perceived that Mr. Sharif's return, Mr. Sharif's sentence or conviction, which was overturned by the court, and he was free to participate in the Pakistani politics, was seen as perceived as having backing of military establishment, could not secure many seats, and even in his support base province, Punjab province, Tehreek-e-Insaf actually gave Mr. Sharif a real challenge.
I'm sorry I have to cut you short because we are running out of time. But thank you very much for all your insights and for talking to WION World is One today. I've been talking to Nawaz Tawheed, who is a senior journalist live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Tawheed, thank you.
My pleasure.
No end seems in sight for the ongoing Israel-Hamas war as the Israeli strikes continue to pound the Gaza Strip and Hamas's ally Hezbollah and Lebanon. Tel Aviv's offensive against the Palestinian militant outfit has also drawn harsh criticism. In the latest, EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell has said that Israel's plans for a military offensive on Rafah in the Gaza Strip is quote-unquote alarming. First, let's take a look at war-torn Gaza, where a man has been injured in the Israeli strike, according to Palestine Red Crescent Society. The video shared by the Palestinian Relief Group shows a wounded Gazan being pulled out of the debris. The armed strikes in Rafah city come at a time when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the Israeli armed forces to prepare a plan and evacuate Rafah civilians. Netanyahu has ordered officials to present a combined plan for evacuation and destruction of Hamas's militants hidden in the city. Shifting focus to Israel's neighbor in the north, Lebanon, where the Israeli armed forces launched strikes in southern Lebanon's El Qiyam, wounding a Hezbollah commander. Responding to Israel, the Iran-backed Lebanese militant outfit also fired dozens of rockets into the Israeli territory. At the same time, Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian has vowed to support the Hezbollah during his visit to Lebanese capital Beirut. Looking at the backlash and public outcry, Tel Aviv's actions against the civilians of Gaza is being criticized and slammed. In West Bank's Jericho, dozens of Israeli and Palestinian activists staged protests with placards saying, "End the war and occupation." Later, the protesters were dispersed by the Israeli security personnel deployed at the protest site.
We came today to organize a joint Palestinian and Israeli demonstration against the war and genocide in Gaza. Our demands are an immediate ceasefire, an end to the war, an all-for-all swap deal, and just a political solution to the Palestinian issue.
In Yemen's Sana'a, thousands of Houthi militias took to the streets and showed solidarity, chanting slogans for Palestinians suffering in the Gaza Strip. The protesting Houthi rebels also carried a large-sized Palestinian flag in Sana'a. In Gaza, the hospitals and medical supplies have been worst affected, and patients, particularly the children, have been bearing the maximum brunt of armed conflict. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has asked the US Congress to approve financial aid for Ukraine. Scholz, who's on a visit to the US, has backed US President Joe Biden's efforts to generate funds for war-torn Ukraine. Scholz and Biden also discussed West Asia's current situation. The White House has flagged warnings that failure in providing aid to Kiev would affect its capability to fight the Russian armed forces in the battlefield. Before holding talks with President Biden, Scholz met the American business executives and spoke about investment and business opportunities in Germany.
It is safe to say the relations between Germany and the United States in particular are currently more intense, closer and more amicable than they have probably been for many years and decades. We have major challenges to overcome, major crises to overcome in the world in which we now live. The biggest one is certainly the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, with all its consequences for security and peace, not only in Europe, but in the whole world.
Scholz's call for Ukrainian aid comes a day after the US Senate advanced a $95.34 billion bill that provides financial aid to Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan. The security aid bill passed in the Senate includes $61 billion for Ukraine as it battles a full-scale Russian invasion, $14 billion for Israel in its war against the Hamas. Notably, the European Union approved a 4-year, $54 billion facility for Ukraine last week. Ukraine, which aspires to join the US's NATO alliance, relies on the West for its armed support and financial backing. Scholz underlined that both Berlin and Washington agreed on the need of a two-state solution for the coexistence of both Israel and Palestine. As US President Joe Biden met visiting German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he ignored questions about his memory that are making global headlines. Biden recently got into fresh trouble over his age after a DOJ report described the president's memory as hazy. Vice President Kamala Harris has come to his defense. Harris has denounced the allegations as gratuitous, inaccurate, and politically motivated. She also highlighted Biden's proactive leadership during intense moments such as the October 7th attack on Israel.
I'm glad you asked. Listen, I have been privileged and proud to serve as Vice President of the United States with Joe Biden as President of the United States. And what I saw of that report last night, I believe is, as a former prosecutor, the comments that were made by that prosecutor, gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate.
Biden will not face charges for knowingly taking classified documents when he left the vice presidency in 2017. Special counsel said in a report that he opted against bringing criminal charges following a 15-month investigation because Biden cooperated and would be difficult to convict. The report described Biden as well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. The White House also criticized the report sharply. It has announced that Biden has ordered establishment of a task force to review the handling of classified information during the transition period between a president and his successor.
We just reject that this is true. And I think that it does raise questions about the gratuitousness, and it raises, makes you wonder why that's in there.
Well, the conclusion ensures that Biden will not risk prison time for mishandling sensitive government documents. But the report did cause further embarrassment for the 81-year-old Biden, who is already the oldest person ever to serve as US president.
I think people like to overblow things. If we're going to say that Biden has memory issues, so does Trump. And none of his supporters seems to be bothered by it. So I do believe that if they're over 75, they should really have a test before they should run for office further.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Teherani has sent us this report from New York.
Less than 24 hours after the release of that harsh report by special counsel Robert Hur, which concluded President Biden would not face charges for his handling of classified documents, but also cast doubt on his mental fitness, the White House, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris, fired back on Friday. President Joe Biden himself, who on Thursday lashed out at Robert Hur's comments, did not take additional questions when he met on Friday afternoon with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in the White House. Instead, President Biden focused on putting the blame on Republicans for the stalemate in sending aid to Ukraine, as Olaf Scholz, for his part, amplified Europe's growing concern about the standoff between the Democrat president and House Republicans over Ukraine funding. Democrats, for the most part, all throughout Friday, were hyper-focused on damage control regarding Robert Hur's damning report, as Republicans question if President Biden's mental acuity is not an issue, then he should be indicted. If it is an issue, then he shouldn't be commander-in-chief. Susan Teherani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
As global markets closely monitor Japan's monetary policy, the International Monetary Fund's first Deputy Managing Director, Gita Gopinath, weighs in on the Bank of Japan's potential shift. With Japan's output gap closing and wage negotiations promising growth, Gopinath emphasizes the importance of a gradual approach and clear communication to avoid market disruptions.
In our view, that means that the natural progression is to exit from YCC and QQE, and then to gradually raise the short-term rate. But to do it gradually, which means, regardless of whether you do the first increase in 2 months or in 3 months, the main point is to raise it, but to raise it slowly over a few years. So nothing dramatic. So I think as long as the BOJ moves gradually, which is what they have signaled that they will do, and provides the right communication to go along with it, that should then, have not very large spillovers to the rest of the world.
The Bank of Japan has been a pillar of ultra-loose monetary policy for years, keeping interest rates near zero and buying massive amounts of assets. This strategy aimed to stimulate growth and achieve a 2% inflation target. However, concerns have risen about its sustainability. Negative interest rates have hurt bank profitability. Additionally, the output gap, the difference between potential and actual output, is expected to close by next year, suggesting the economy is nearing full capacity. Rising wages are expected in this year's annual negotiations, further supporting the argument for policy normalization. This combination of factors has led to the BOJ to consider a gradual shift. Quick questions, however, remain. How will the shift impact economic growth and inflation? Will it be enough to achieve the 2% inflation target? How will global investors react in the long run? Only time will tell. And that's the latest on this weekend edition of Wild DNA. My name is Eric Njoka. Thank you very much for your time and for watching. Do stay with us. This is WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
As chatter surrounding the carbon footprint of celebrities takes over social media, we look at big names who have come under fire for luxury travel. We decode the most popular Super Bowl halftime shows so far, and we share a special list of binge-worthy romantic comedies ahead of Valentine's Day. All this and more with me, Alison Lagrange, at these times only on WION E-Club.
This week on the West Asia Post, 4 months on, the destruction of Gaza and its people continues. Netanyahu shoots down Hamas's ceasefire proposal. What was the 3-stage truce deal? And amid the rubble of Gaza's schools and universities is a genius child scientist. All this and more.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is one.
This week on Tech It Out.